When I go home, my buddies they will say, how do you earn your living? How do you earn your pay? I reply in a burnout tone. I earn my living in the surf zone. Oh, when I go out, the ladies they will say, how do you earn your living? How do you earn your pay? I reply as I point to my chest. I earn my living in the lean and red. And when I go to hell, Satan he will say, how do you earn your living? How do you earn your pay?
My name is Rad, and I have the honor to host Inside the Team Room, and we're on SOFREP, and I have Brandon Webb over here, and I also have Charlie Melton to my right. Notable dudes, and please tell me a little bit about yourself, Brandon and Charlie. Go ahead.
So my background, which some of you heard before, but I had an interesting path into the SEAL community, right? My parents were hippies. My dad was in Malibu burning draft cards in the 70s as a Canadian guy. Met my mom hitchhiking, picked her and her best friend up coming back from Malibu Beach. He picked them up hitchhiking Malibu Canyon. Moved my mom to interior British Columbia, Canada. My grandmother said, you're not going anywhere unless you get married. So my parents got married, moved to Canada.
So he did the right thing, is what you're saying.
He did do the right thing. Yeah. And a shotgun. My grandmother was just no bullshit. She was like, pretty tough lady. But grew up in Canada until 10. My dad had lost his first construction company, and it was a pivotal point, I think, for him and my mom, because they had this dream to sail around the world. So they bought a sailboat in Vancouver and basically said, screw it, let's go
off-grid,
pursue this dream of like sailing around the world. So moved my sister and I on a 47-foot ketch called Agio, and we sailed from Vancouver, lived briefly in Washington for about a year, then sailed from Washington down to Ventura, California. So I lived on a boat for about 5 years, and we homeschooled in and out of traditional school, homeschool, then did some cruising in Mexico, and I ended up getting a job on a scuba diving boat when I was 12 years old, and that kind of was my first point in that direction of becoming a SEAL, because I'd wanted to always be a pilot ever since I could remember, but I got a job on this incredible job on this scuba diving boat called the Peace out of Ventura Harbor, and we had a private chef, hot tub, and we would take divers out to the Channel Islands, and it was just like this Jacques Cousteau experience for me. The captain taught me how to dive before I was 13. By the time I was 14, I was shooting, like spearfishing, 50-pound halibut and grabbing a bag full of lobster.
Huge.
Yeah.
That's got to be huge.
Including like growing up very quickly, not only like playing poker with the guys and the owner Bill like slipping me $100 when I was 13 to kind of play, five card stud.
So you were 13 doing this?
Oh yeah, poker. Yeah, it was a really cool experience, and you grow up very quickly in that environment, because I remember the first time, one of the scariest experience I ever had was when this Irish captain, Mike Roach, woke me up at 2 a.m. We were at the northernmost Channel Islands called the San Miguel Island, and it was a seal and sea lion habitat, which is great in the daytime. You dive and there's like sea lions and seals swimming
all around you and everything. Huh?
But the thing is, like, what eats seals and sea lions? Great white sharks.
Yeah, probably like orcas.
It's also great white habitat, and the weather had gotten rough. We'd put fed them, put the passengers to sleep for the night, and the crew went to sleep, but the weather started getting rough, and Mike wakes me up at 2 a.m. and says, hey, get your suit up. The anchor's stuck. You need to go dive.
But it's 2 a.m.
2 a.m, and I'd done the kind of get the anchor unstuck in the daylight before, but this was, at night, shark-infested water by myself. So I was terrified. I was like, what do you mean I got to get my... what do you mean I got to do what?
Yeah.
But I did it anyway, and I remember, you just grow up very quick in that kind of environment. So I had all this boating experience from 12 to 15, working summers and weekends, and by the time I was 15, I was a full paid deckhand, getting paid probably $100 a day plus tips, living a really good life. You know, living with my parents, I had no bills to pay. And my dad makes this announcement, which I really respect him for. He says, "Look, we're talking about taking this big sailing trip to Australia. I don't want to be the guy that's at the dock always talking about this trip that never takes it," right? Because there are those people that is talking about the dream, but they're never going after it. So he announces to the family, "We're going to take this trip. We're going to sail to Australia and see what happens. Maybe we continue on. Maybe we live in Australia." They actually, my parents had formal immigration to Australia, but me at the time, I wanted to chase girls. And I was living this great lifestyle.
And growing up in this area.
Yeah, I didn't want to go on some
Yeah.
crazy
You're like, I don't want to
trip.
go to Australia.
Yeah, I was like, I don't want to. I like it here. So, you know, we picked up and left. I went with my family. We sailed Baja, California, down mainland Mexico to Acapulco. I turned 16 in Acapulco. My mom doesn't even know this, but I ended up losing my virginity in Acapulco.
Not hard to do.
Some guys at the yacht club took me out for my 16th birthday. My dad's like, "Oh yeah, take him out." And then after the fact, he's like, "Oh, what have I done?" You know, because he was hearing the stories, and I still don't think my mom knows what happened this day.
She knows now. She'll know now.
To make a long story longer, yeah, she will know now.
She will know now,
I love
Mom.
you, Mom.
Yeah, Mom.
Then Acapulco to the Marquesas Islands was 30-day passage at sea, and that's when my dad and I started having these big arguments about seamanship, and I had a chip on my shoulder as a 16-year-old, and
You knew it all.
yeah, I knew everything, right? And the thing is, in hindsight, my mom was like, "You kind of knew a lot more than your dad on certain things."
Well, you're doing the job.
And I give my dad credit. Like, this is taking your family on a sailboat halfway around the world before GPS. We had a sat nav, and we would get one fix if we were lucky every 12 hours. So he was taking like sun sights with the sextant, star sights.
He's out there trying to align everything. And
Yeah,
just
dead
saying,
reckoning.
that
30
way.
days passage. I think it was just over 30 days from Acapulco to Hiva-Oa in the Marquesas, then, which is part of French Polynesia. I made it to Tahiti, and my dad threw me off the boat. We had this big argument over the anchor, what anchor to use, and the bow. And I said, we need to switch out anchors because I've dove on enough stuck anchors to know what works. And he's like, whatever. And that night we drug anchor, and I was like, I told you so. And we ended up like almost a fist fight. And my dad was like, I think you should leave. And I said, you know what? I think so too. I don't want to be here. I grabbed a backpack, $150, found a catamaran that was sailing from Tahiti to Hawaii, waved goodbye to my
Wow, you just like
parents.
thumbed out a
16,
catamaran,
16.
dude.
Mom was crying, you know. And to be honest, like I was independent and ready to go, but my you know, the truth is, you know, aside from my mom being a total wreck and like crying because I was leaving home at 16, I probably cried myself to sleep the first 3 nights
I would
on this
imagine.
boat. I'm like, what the hell did I just
Yeah.
do? You know, I'm on
My mom's there, and I'm
off
here.
to Hawaii.
Yeah.
And so I left home at 16, came back. I called my boss, Bill, who owned the boat in Ventura. I said, Bill, can I live on the boat and finish school? I'd finished my junior year early, and I had 1 year left of high school, and I still had this thing, like, maybe I'll do the Naval Academy. Came back, so I got Bill let me live on the boat and finish school, and then one of the regular we do 2 serious dive trips, hunting trips a year, one in the summer for halibut and the winter for lobster, with this group that would charter the boat. We call them the Animals, and it was just like a bunch of crazy characters. Like this Russian guy that was a PE teacher in South Central Los Angeles. Everyone had these crazy nicknames. We call him the Czar, and he's like blonde hair and like didn't take any shit off these like South Central kids.
Yeah, right.
He would come out. This other guy called the Reseda Rat, and Reseda Rat gave me this book called Rogue Warrior, which was Marcinko's first book, the founder of SEAL Team 6.
Yeah.
And then I became obsessed. I was like, this is for me. I can do this right now. My grades weren't that great, kind of going on and off homeschool.
Sure.
And I saw that, okay, this is what I want to do. Bill, meanwhile, was training me to be a captain. And by 18, I had everything in line to take my 100-ton master's captain's license. But I said, I don't want to do this, Bill. I want to go and take a shot at becoming a SEAL. The thing I also learned was that my friends outside the dive boat I lost my best friend at crystal meth, this guy Joe, and I just said, I need a different environment. I need to get the hell out of here. So the Navy was great for me, but I joined in 93. I was a search and rescue swimmer in helicopters for just over 3 years. Applied the first time, got denied because the helicopter search and rescue community was undermanned and they wanted to keep me. And then second package got approved. I classed up with 215 in 97.
215 is the class for your BUDS class,
yeah.
right? Battle Underwater Demolition SEAL class that you had to go through. For those of you that may not know what that 215 is, just to pull that out there. And okay, so that's the class you were in, 215.
So 220-ish, and then we graduated 23 originals.
Wow.
And we can talk about my BUD story later, but I later went on to SEAL Team 3, which at the time was responsible for Southwest Asia. Ended up, becoming a sniper, deployed. I was deployed to Afghanistan right away after 9/11, but also was on the USS Cole after it got bombed in Yemen.
That's right.
Sniper Overwatch.
That was like the 90s, 19...
That was 99,
99.
2000?
Late 90s, yeah.
Late, yeah, almost 2000.
I came back,
Jeez.
got involved in sniper sustainment training at TRADET, in the sniper cell, and then ended up working with Charlie at the sniper program, which is 3 months long. Program we're in the process of kind of revamping our sniper course. Finished out my tour then. I kind of hit burnout at that point, and I got out in 2006, did some kind of OGA contract work, started a business, lost the business, was working in corporate and writing on the side. I found for me, I was one of the first wave of guys out of the community to kind of start writing, and then ended up getting a book deal.
Like doing reviews, kit reviews, you were doing all sorts of different...
magazines. I wrote some stuff for FHM and Maxim and started getting published and was kind of doing that as a hobby. And then military.com approached me and said, hey, we want you to run this blog. I took that over and blew that up and said, you know what, I think there's a business here. And that's what led me to start SOFREP.com in 2012. And that's what leads us here. And today I run a digital media business, and it's really, SOFREP is the main face of that, as well as we have, today we have the largest subscription box, gear box for guys.
Which is Crate Club.
Crate Club, which is under the SOFREP umbrella. And, our whole thing is, my vision of what I do now is I want to be the Marvel of military content. We've done this, we do shows like this, in the kind of reality unscripted space, but I want to do scripted stuff for Netflix, HBO, and so we're pitching some really cool projects to those guys right now for series and film as well.
Sure.
But that's my story. I'm sticking to it.
That's awesome. Yeah. So you probably read a lot on the boat.
Yeah. No. And journaled also.
Because we didn't really have internet back then to just keep you busy.
No, I read voraciously. I'm a huge Star Wars, Lord of the Rings.
Right.
I mean, I would read anything.
It would probably captivate you because you can't get
taught myself
cabin fever.
How to juggle. Yeah, taught me how
You'll
to
have
juggle.
to show that. That's great. That's great.
That's pretty talented on a sailboat.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
and I would say that you kind of led me right into Charlie when you said that Charlie Melton here comes from the teams with you and was in a course. Charlie Melton, why don't you introduce yourself to myself and to who's watching?
Yeah, yes, sir. I'm Charlie Melton. My childhood wasn't quite as eventful as Brandon's, but I grew up in a small country town in Georgia, Macon, Georgia. My family I grew up doing construction work from a young age. We weren't that wealthy, but I learned a lot of skills in construction and all that stuff. So same thing, I started working when I was about 12 years old. I was, every summer, all my uncles and everybody were in construction, so I'd be a plumber one summer, framer one summer, roofer. From time I was at an early age, I grew up hunting and shooting guns always. So from an early age, I wanted to become a SEAL. My dad was in the Navy for 8 years.
How old were you when you wanted to be? 12, 13?
Probably 8 or 9 when I figured it out.
You were like, this is what I want to do.
Yep.
And you did.
Well, I always wanted to be like special forces. I always loved guns and hunting and all that. So ended up, when I was 19, I ended up joining the Navy, and I went to SEAL training and did 25 years and retired in 2015.
So you were 19, and then you...
Never been out of Macon, Georgia.
No, so first time away from parents, first time away from everything.
Yep.
You're like, I want to be this SEAL.
And I showed up in San Diego, California. To
And you signed a contract
on
probably,
my birthday, on my 19th
I bet your
birthday.
contract said if you don't make this, you're in need of the Navy.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Okay, so you're like, need of the Navy or SEAL.
Yep, exactly.
So you went after the SEAL.
So it was either make it or break it. And
What job did you join at?
I was an IC man, interior communications.
Okay.
Like,
Which is
Interior
not bad.
communications.
no, it wasn't bad.
I wouldn't want to like roll the dice with being a cook or something.
No, I don't think I would have made it in the regular Navy, but
The washing machine repairman,
I was
maybe.
second that.
yeah, I would have definitely got out early.
Yeah.
But I ended up doing 25 years. I mean, I love being in the SEAL teams. And the beauty of it is you can see that our different backgrounds, but they, like, all team guys have like extraordinary backgrounds, like from all walks of the world, but it brings guys with the same mindset together. And
Sounds like somebody that puts their hands on young to a hard job that an older guy's doing, like sailing a boat across the world, you know, building houses and doing construction, you know, getting your hands at 12, 13 years old. I kind of had that same thing with my father being a Green Beret and, you know, him saying, hey, come to the armory.
They do all these, they hire these consultants to come in and do all these tests and survey and collect data around how do we get candidates into that pipeline, and get out, you know, basically
not just candidates. How do you get people to make it through?
Yeah, how do you make it? So how do we get
figure out the cycle?
90% failure rate down?
Right.
And you know, all these fancy tests. Like literally, all you have to ask the candidate is one question, like, "What was your childhood like?" And if there's any type of adversity, you know, growing up, having to work at an early age, parents didn't have money, you know,
no parents around.
The guys that make it are the ones that have the tools to deal with adversity when they show up. Because when you
have to figure out how to figure stuff out at a young age, I think it helps you.
Well,
I've had like Ivy League scholarship athletes, Olympic trials, come to SEAL training, and sometimes those guys are first to quit because it's the first time in their life. It doesn't matter what family they're from, how talented they are physically. You're going to experience the suck.
Or you're going to experience failure.
I'd imagine an
failure.
instructor's going to find the thing that makes you suck.
And those guys, if they don't have the tools to deal with that, the first.
I think experiencing failure and knowing how to deal with failure and drive through it, I think that's huge with becoming.
Yeah, I would agree. You know, and I kind of hang on my father's laurels a lot as an SF guy, but he was an adopted, you know, at 12.
No.
He didn't have anybody around his life until he was 12, and then my grandfather adopted him and gave him a home, and then at 17 he joined the Navy. And off he went into Vietnam as a radio Morse code.
Yep.
So I mean that's kind of, and then he transitioned from the Navy into SF.
Yep.
And so I dabbled with the Air Force, where I found that a lot of people get a direction in life when they join the military, and some people can do 25 years or 13 years, and it gives you this direction to go straight, left, or right. And it happened to give me a U-turn, and I said, hey, you know what? Come back and figure out your life.
Yeah, exactly.
And so here we are today, able to have this conversation. I love the positivity of, you know, just being able to say that I did raise my hand and I did swear to defend, and all of you guys did, and you've gone off to do some.
I'm laughing because Memphis is snoring.
I know, dude. I'm trying to keep Memphis entertained.
I'm like, I got a straight shot of the dog's balls and then him just snoring right
Yeah. Well, I think another thing too, when you grow up in that environment, then you really appreciate America and what America's all about. How you can go from that to whatever you want to do.
Well, there's a true believer aspect in America.
I think it makes you a patriot from a young age.
Yeah,
it makes you want to serve your country.
I don't know if you can force patriotism. You have to be patriotic, you know, and like find that. And so.
But I think it helps a lot more when you grow up in those environments.
Yes.
Spoon-fed.